Natalie Davis, your host of the Untold Miracles podcast, and today we have a very special guest. He is a heart surgeon, a professor, Daytime Emmy Award winner. He is the author of The Good Life magazine. I think he's America's favorite doctor. Welcome to the show, Dr. Oz.
Well, thank you for having me. I appreciate all those kind words as well.
I had the pleasure of meeting you back in 2010 when you came to the Children's Miracle Network Hospital celebration, and you gave a keynote address to all of the Children's Miracle Network Hospital's family. You taught us a lot. And when I think about miracles, I think about you, Dr. Oz. What does a miracle look and feel like to you?
Well, it's interesting because as a scientist, it's implied that miracles aren't real. There must be a real scientific explanation. But the fact of the matter is it's something that surprises you, that you can't explain by what you would have expected. And a lot of times you'll attribute it to some divine aid group, but it's really, to me, about hope. Miracles happen because we can't predict everything that's going to happen. And frequently, and I've been doing the show now for 8 years, I'll talk to guests who, by the book, if they had read the book, wouldn't be there next to me. And yet something happened, something intervened. I remember Jenna Garner joined us for a show about a movie she had made, telling one of these stories. Then we had a real mom and daughter on the program. And this little girl had complex gastrointestinal problems. She just couldn't eat. So literally because of the pain and because she couldn't digest her food, she was dying from starvation. But she's all the experts, well documented. Any doctor, myself included, looking at her records would agree she'd seen the best of the best. She'd been taken care of in her hometown. She was from the South, but she got up to Boston for specialty care. And she falls into this tree, upside down, is trapped there, unconscious. And when they rescue her from this hollowed-out tree that she'd fallen into, she was better. And there's no way you can get out of describing what happened to her as a miracle. And whether it's that case or another one I recently had on the show of a little boy who runs out the back of his house, falls into a stream, is lost for an hour, and then somehow they get him back. You look at these, you say, well, there's no way I can explain that. Then the bigger miracle is how we try to make sense of what happened and the lessons we can teach from that.
I love you sharing that story with Jennifer Garner's movie. That child was treated at our children's hospital, and it doesn't make sense.
Oh, my goodness.
It doesn't make sense, but it happened, and it's real. So in your many years opening up people's chests, how do you weigh that out of the science of you go in and just do your part?
Well, Carl Sagan, who is a role model to many physicians who cross into media, would say that divorcing science from religion is a fool's errand. It's because they have different goals. Science is to address answerable questions, but the questions you can't answer, at least until you can answer them, are the domain of spiritual leaders. And there are often cases that I've had. I'm a heart surgeon, so as you know, I deal with cases that are life and death. And there are moments where you just can't put it all together, and you have to look for help. And help comes in unexpected places. Frankly, miracles aren't just about God looking down and saying, I'm going to intervene here. I think it's about people stepping up when you least expected them and doing something that was courageous because they think it's the right thing to do. So miracles happen all the time in all of our lives if we just open our eyes to notice that they're occurring. And they happen to everyone listening to this podcast right now. At some point today, there was a little miracle, something that if they look back on and say, what a coincidence that happened. And yeah, there's some bigger miracles like the ones we talked about earlier, but they all form a quilt that describes a safety net that supports us.
What's been the biggest miracle that's happened in your life?
It might seem commonplace, but marrying my wife. I say that because I was the one voted by my class in college never to get married till later in life. I had a career that I was very focused on. I wanted to be a heart surgeon. And then somewhere in the middle of medical school, I fell in love with this woman that pushed all the buttons, challenged me, forced me to answer questions I didn't want to address. Very spiritual woman. Her mother's a minister, by the way, who took me to heights because she had a bigger vision for what I was going to be and what I could be than I ever had. And that was the best decision I ever made, and I don't take credit for making it. It sort of happened to me. And I tell everybody on my staff, I've got over 100 people work on the Dr. Oz show. Whenever they tell me the good news they're going to get married, I say, what's the best thing that ever happened to me? I just pray you'll have the exact same outcome. And the wisdom to listen to the person that you're in love with is a valuable one.
So you're talking about your beautiful wife, Lisa, and I think it's kind of a miracle how you guys met. Would you mind sharing that story?
It's actually an arranged marriage in some ways.
A miracle or arranged marriage, whichever you want to put it.
But it's a miracle that that they even thought of doing it. My father and mother lived not far from where I was going to medical school at the University of Pennsylvania, and my mother had commented on the fact that they hadn't gotten up to see me much, so they did arrange to come up and take me to dinner. And my future father-in-law was a friend of my dad's, and said, if we're going to dinner, maybe I can drag my daughter along. And he has 6 kids, so he could have dragged anybody around, but decided to bring the oldest one, and she thought I was the maitre d', which is not an auspicious start to any relationship. But we met, and I immediately found insights that her parents could share. That it's always a good thing when you like the family as well. And we began to date. At least in my case, it was secret. I didn't want my dad to know that he had anything to do with me finding someone that I might fall in love with. And after a few months, I came clean, and we've been together since that dinner we had. And it's a story that I share with my friends frequently, because I could have easily had that dinner and not thought twice about it and moved on with my life. It wasn't supposed to happen, because life happens when you're busy making plans. And I had all my stuff organized. It wasn't supposed to be that way, but it happened, and I count my lucky blessings every time I think about it.
From that marriage came 4 amazing children, and I just have to ask you about your daughter, Daphne. You just were up against her TV show, The Chew. What did that feel like to be competing against your daughter in that category?
Well, it's a little tough because I want her to win. Her mother wants her to win, but I want my team to win.
Yes.
So we've been going at each other for a couple of years now. We made a bet this year to have the loser make dinner for the winner, which I do think I may have outsmarted my daughter because she's a great chef and I can't cook. So I was going to win either way. But they announced our name this year as the best show. And to celebrate, we went out to a fast food burger joint just to, because that's what she wanted. I wanted her to be happy. But she takes it well. She's won Emmys, and I'm very proud of what she's been able to accomplish with great folks on The Chew, which is, I think, a cooking show that can take you into fun, but also can teach you how to cook. I think an art form that many Americans haven't learned as they've grown up. And we talk frequently about how the reality that food can fix it. There are all kinds of things you can do with food these days to deal with ailments that people think need to be addressed with medications or surgery. And as a doctor, I'm quick to point out that if I can get my diabetes under control, my blood pressure addressed with food, it's the best way to do it. And we always got the medications as a backup plan,
yes.
But they're always supposed to be a backup plan. They're insurance policy. They're not your first line.
Dr. Oz, what are your 5 go-to foods?
I love nuts. Always have. I really don't think anyone should leave home without nuts because they allow you to have quick nutrition. You don't have to forge like a rodent through cupboards looking for something to eat, or a vending machine even worse. I like yogurt, but not skim yogurt, real yogurt, and I don't put anything in it. I just have plain yogurt, and if I want to add anything, I'll add berries, which is pretty typical for my breakfast. I like having a protein source. My favorite happens to be salmon, but a protein source that's real, unadulterated, not processed. I don't like to add a lot of stuff to great tasting food. Big fan of broccoli. I know that sounds corny and terrible, but I've always liked broccoli and cauliflower. The cruciferous vegetables crunch in my mouth the right way, but I don't eat them raw, obviously. I can slice them up. You can actually make it like a hamburger, frankly. Grill them up, and they taste great. Be experimental. And I'll give you one alcoholic beverage because I don't drink a lot, but
okay.
Once or twice a week, I like tequila.
Okay. Dr. Oz, do you have any guilty pleasures, or are you healthy all the time?
Plenty of guilty pleasures. My favorite is chocolate, and some might say, well, dark chocolate, which is what I like, is not really a guilty pleasure because it's rich in polyphenols, these chemicals that have longevity value to them. It's got caffeine. I use it as my pick-me-up in the middle of the afternoon. But if I can mix it with nuts, I could go through a tray of those things, nut stuff. If you want a true guilty pleasure, it's barbecue, which I've always adored since I was a little boy.
So are you as good a chef as Daphne?
No, she crushes me.
What about Lisa?
Lisa's the best chef of all, I think. She's written a great cookbook. She taught Daphne how to cook, and she's the one who's, for my whole existence, taught me that food can fix it.
So I know, Dr. Oz, that you're working on another book. You have 7 bestsellers. What can we look forward to in your next book?
I want to take a new visit to sacredness of food. And I think a lot of people think of food as very utilitarian. You count the calories or the vitamin content, and that's how you judge whether it's good or purely on taste. So you go to a fast food place because you're judging on time. But I think food has a unique ability to heal us, and it has also the ability to make us come together in the family. I want to make sure that stays in the forefront of the American diet. So it's a book that's going to have a scientific foundation, but I'm going to have lots of great recipes in there, and I'm basing it on a lot of the wisdom that we put into the magazine over the past couple of years.
That's awesome. When will that be coming out?
It's going to come out in September, the second week of September, and I'll be talking to folks all about it, but people can go on Amazon and look at it right now. But it's going to be a fun book, and the pictures are drop-dead gorgeous.
your show creates miracles for its viewers. You handle so many different topics, from addiction to pain to mental health. What is it that really inspires you to continue to be able to provide this amazing content to help other people improve their lives?
It's always been a calling in my life to influence people to think differently about their health. I don't always have all the answers, but I think people are nihilistic about their health. They don't understand how much power they have to shift it in a better direction. In fact, most of America is very happy living at 50th percentile of who they could be in life, not because they want to be 50th percentile. If you take a test, that's a failing grade, but they don't know what 100th percentile feels like anymore. So the show is hoping to be a field guide, to be able to point you in the right direction, to light up your path, so that you can identify what actually would stimulate you to go to newer heights. And people, when they catch that bug, they'll do all kinds of things. They get into physical fitness routines. They start doing yoga. They meditate. They'll eat differently. And, of course, they'll look and feel better. All their friends, when they go back to their high school reunion, say, oh, my goodness, you look great. And they always, when I walk up to them on the street and they thank me, I'd say, listen, it's not me. Something resonated deep in your heart and your soul, captivated you to change what you were doing. And I think that is the opportunity we have as Americans. We're all clubbing each other over the health care bill that is out there between Republicans and Democrats, but health care is an American issue. And we are not going to be able to get ahead of it unless we deal with the underlying reality that we're really expensive to take care of. Some of it's the healthcare system, but some of it's our own personal responsibility. The true battle for health should be won in our living rooms, our kitchens, our bedrooms. That's where we'll win.
What would you say to a listener right now that has really never made that decision to go above 50%? Like, they want the optimum health. They've just never had the commitment. They've never taken that big plunge to health and wellness. What would you say to them?
Nothing feels as good, nothing, as doing the right thing for your body, the temple of your soul. As soon as you appreciate how good you feel 5 minutes after you didn't have that piece of cake or potato chip or the extra drink or the puff of the cigarette, and these days, a hit of narcotics, which is afflicting 1 in 3 families. As soon 5 minutes later, the world feels so good to you. And I think folks begin to get comfortable with that little bit of restraint. But you have to have hacks. You've got to have little tactics. I mentioned nuts earlier. Half an hour before your next meal, have a handful of nuts. Just throw some cashews in your mouth. See what your meal feels like. You're going to be much more aware of the taste you're having because you're not famished. And that ability to control your destiny is really what it's all about. Because if you can change what's happening in your body, you can change the world outside of it.
Are all nuts created equal, or is there one better than another?
Nuts all have different benefits. I mean, walnuts have more omega-3s than the others. Just find a nut that you like. Even peanuts, which aren't really nuts, right? They're legumes. They grow under the ground. Even peanuts have a nutritious value. So people quibble over whether you're losing the benefit if you roast them or if you have a little too much fat, the macadamia nut. But they all are associated with your diet. In fact, eating nuts, people mistakenly think you'll gain weight. It's the opposite. People tend to lose weight because nuts are so rich in nutrients. Your brain's looking for nutrients, not calories, so it slows you down once it has enough nutrients.
I have a friend in particular who's going to be very excited to hear that peanuts are good for her. She's going to love that. So of all the different topics that you tackle on your show, is there one that you're most passionate about right now as far as making a huge impact?
I've been doing these Faithful Friday shows where I bring on spiritual leaders who are practical. They're not talking esoterically about problems that are out there. They're focused in on tactics you can use day in and day out. And they use wisdom that has been expressed from pulpits for centuries to get people to pay attention to the small decisions they're making wrong. And that can help in relationships and in dieting and in avoiding toxins in your body and passing on wisdom to your kids and dealing with web and bullying and all the other things. But I love the fact that we can weave health, again, taking care of the temple of your soul, into the deeper fabric of America.
On your show, over the last 8 seasons, you're heading into your 9th season. Was there a specific episode or a specific person where you're like, wow, this person's life is changed forever?
There was a guy that I met at a free clinic, which we host around the country, named Jared. And Jared was a 37-year-old overweight gentleman that was curious about his blood pressure and his blood sugar and everything. So he got tested. It turns out his blood sugar was over 500. And when I asked him a little bit more in questioning, he said, yeah, I'm always thirsty. I'm always urinating, and I'm tired all the time. Well, that's classic triad of diabetes. And Jared managed to lose weight and get his life back on track. And by doing that, control his diabetes without taking all kinds of crazy medications. And I love the fact that he had the epiphany, and it happened on the show because I didn't share his numbers with him until I had him on the STET. And I presented all this information to him in a place we call the Truth Tube. So I just give you the truth there, just put the lab values up. And he looked over at me very quietly and very calmly, and he said, "So what do I do?" And it was beautiful. And it reflects what men often will do, which is they'll get bad news and they're immediately solution-oriented. He wanted to know, what can he do to get better? And I always tell women that my goal is to get them to instinctively react the same way. Women are much more aware of their health. They would have figured out they were diabetics long before Jared did. But they don't feel confident intervening. They'll often feel intimidated by the process. And I think part of the reason the show has worked is that we give a little testosterone to the message. I want women to take care of themselves and then take care of their spouse, or the other members of their family they care about, and then their communities, and be the change agents because they're the chief family officer.
What are you most looking forward to next?
We've all got all kinds of fun stuff planned. We've got a lot of celebs coming on that have made it their passion to spread the wisdom of health around the country. I'm going to let them do some of the lifting because they can make it fun, and they appeal to different audiences, whether they're ministers and preachers with large followings or rock stars or athletes. All these guys have a different way of telling their story that gets to a different audience. And I want to make sure that I give them the platform to tell that story in a brilliant way. And that's one of the beautiful things about the Children's Miracle Network is you guys do a beautiful job getting folks who are notable for something else to play a role in helping young people. We all want to. We sometimes forget that if we don't step up and help protect these young folks, no one will. So the Children's Miracle Network does a great job doing just that, linking together people who want to make a difference. And I applaud you for that.
Well, it's because of people like you. I mean, you've been the host of our telethon. You've done multiple things for us. We just had Children's Hospitals Week. You supported that. And it wouldn't be possible without you being willing to use your platform even more to reach out to help these children's hospitals. So I really appreciate you doing that. So I want to go back to when you were 7 years old. You have a father who's a surgeon. And I want to know where your inspiration came from.
We were waiting at the ice cream counter. I'll never forget my dad pestering this poor 10-year-old in front of me. And, when you're 7, a 10-year-old looks gargantuan. And so he said, the guy was ordering his ice cream, this poor kid. He said, "What are you going to be when you grow up?" And the young man said, "Well, I don't know. I'm 10. And then he got his ice cream and he left. And so I was up next ordering my usual vanilla fudge. And my dad looked at me and he said, "No matter what, I want you to always have an answer to that question. You can change your mind, but I never want you to answer anyone asking what you're going to do by saying, 'I don't know.' You should have a plan." And so he asked me, and I said, "I want to be a doctor." And I never changed my mind.
Where did you first start off practicing once you were out of medical school?
I went to Columbia University because I was offered a training program there, which is pretty prestigious institution. So I wanted to see what it was like to play Columbia. And it was in an inner city institution, so I also would be exposed to a lot of different kinds of ailments that I wouldn't normally see in a suburban hospital. I did my residency there, and then at the end of my residency, I did a cardiac fellowship to train in cardiac surgery. They offered me a job, so I took it. And I never thought I'd stay, but as I started to practice in academic medicine, I enjoyed it more and more. Did some operations on kids, by the way, because I was running the mechanical heart program, and we had a big initiative trying to help kids whose hearts were failing them, a common cause of demise in young people. And I don't know if you saw the Jimmy Kimmel show that I did recently, but his son was born with as a blue baby with a condition called tetralogy of Fallot.
I have little boyfriends across the country who have that condition. It's a lot. It's very common.
It is common, and it used to be lethal. But these days, as Jimmy's son experienced, you can treat the problem. In fact, cure is a hard word to use anytime, but these kids shouldn't have long-term issues growing up. They might need more procedures, but they should have a great outcome. And I, at Columbia, was exposed to lots of young people at Children's Hospital. Morgan Stanley Children's Hospital is a great institution in the city. That's Columbia University Children's Hospital. And I learned a lot about managing complex illnesses because it's an institution that can attract a lot of donor organs. And I'm still practicing there. People don't know this, but although I host a show every day, I tape shows ahead of time for Thursday, and I actually go to the hospital those days and take care of people and operate.
I remember when I first learned that you were still doing surgeries and hosting your show. How do you manage to find the time to fit all of it in?
Well, it's not about time management. It's about energy management. And I want people to remember that. Probably the most important thing I'll say today, because I know there are lots of folks who want to do good out there, But if you don't get energy from the things you're doing, you won't have the energy to do more and more. So make sure that you carve some time out of your busy schedule to do things that give you the energy you need to keep going. It's the moral equivalent of coffee. And when I do things like help the Children's Miracle Network, it gives me energy that allows me to work later into the night for longer hours for more days. And I always have to keep going back to that foundation. That's why I still operate. Because when I look across at somebody who needs my help, and I feel, my goodness, I'm connected to this individual. I'm there for you. We're going to make this happen together. It reminds me why I went into all this together.
Dr. Oz, thank you so much for your time today. I know your son has a prom, and you're going to be helping him get to that event. But thank you for your time. We look forward to tuning in to the show next season, to your book, and we will talk to you later. Have an amazing day.
Take care.
I got a good feeling. My head is reeling. Hello, today it's all good.
Hi, I'm Chris Pine. Children's hospitals are amazing places, but they require tremendous resources to care for kids. That's why donations are so important. Put your money where the miracles are. Give to your Children's Miracle Network Hospital.